My name is Dr. Marcus Veloso. Yesterday, November 29th, 2025, at 3:47:16 UTC, I captured my own voice coming from a frequency that shouldn't exist. It was warning me about something that would happen today, and it happened. This is the last record I'll be able to make before they come for me, before I become what I heard on the other side. I worked at the Radio Astronomy Observatory of Atibaia in the mountainous region of São Paulo, Brazil. My function was to monitor radio signals of cosmic origin, catalog anomalies, filter terrestrial interference. Bureaucratic work, methodical, silent, the routine of a man who chose to look at the stars because he couldn't bear to look at people anymore. 32 years of career, no confirmed contact, just the white noise of the cosmos, occasionally interrupted by pulsars, quasars, fast radio bursts, nothing that required more than a weekly technical report, until the early morning of yesterday. I was alone in the monitoring room. The night shift has always been my favorite. Fewer people, fewer questions. The luminous panels projected a bluish light in the gray lead-walled environment. 7 simultaneous screens displaying real-time spectrograms, each scanning a different band of the electromagnetic spectrum, frequencies between 300 megahertz and 30 gigahertz, captured by our 32-meter diameter parabolic antenna pointed at the constellation Aquarius. Everything normal, everything predictable. At 3:47:16, screen 3 began to flash. It wasn't a common flicker, it wasn't solar interference, it wasn't satellite noise. The waveform that appeared on the spectrogram was perfectly symmetrical, amplitude modulated with 0.0001 Hz precision. Central frequency, 1420.405751 MHz. The hydrogen line, the universal frequency, one that any technological civilization would recognize. But there was something wrong. The signal was modulated in a way I had never seen. Not in pulses, not in patterns, but in layers, as if there were multiple overlapping transmissions, each slightly displaced in time. I activated the verification protocol. Equipment check, normal. Triangulation with other observatories, negative. The signal didn't come from any fixed point in the sky. It was simply there, in all directions simultaneously, as if all of space was transmitting. I recorded everything, obviously. WAV file, 48 kilohertz, 24 bits. I put on the headphones, increased the gain, and that's when I heard it. It wasn't a whistle, it wasn't Morse code. It was a voice, human, or something that had once been human. It spoke in Portuguese with an accent I recognized immediately because it was mine. It was my cadence, my labored breathing. Marcus, you have 17 hours. Don't ignore this. Don't think it's stress. Don't think you're having a breakdown. At 8:47 p.m. today, you're going to receive a call. Don't answer. I repeat, do not answer. If you answer, you'll open the door, and they will enter. I ripped off the headphones. My hands were shaking. I checked the CO2 levels in the room. I was thinking hypoxia-induced hallucination. 410 parts per million. Normal. Temperature 19 degrees Celsius. Humidity 62%. All parameters within normality. But the signal was still there, pulsing on screen 3. And when I put the headphones back on, the voice continued. I know what you're thinking. You're checking the sensors. You're looking for a rational explanation. There isn't one. This is real. This already happened. For me, this happened 3 years ago. I am you, Marcus. Or I was, before answering. The signal lasted exactly 11 minutes and 34 seconds. Then absolute silence. I checked the recording 17 times. Spectral analysis confirmed there was no editing, no digital compression, no voice synthesis artifacts. It was a pure analog transmission, impossible to fake with that level of detail. And there was something more disturbing. The waveform presented a property I had never seen. When I zoomed in the visualization, I discovered that each peak of the signal contained a miniaturized version of the entire signal, fractal, infinite, as if the message was encoded at all timescales simultaneously. I did what any scientist would do. I tried to rationalize. Someone was invading our frequency, a sophisticated hack, a military test, an elaborate prank from some colleague who discovered my psychiatric history. Yes, I had problems, 3 years in therapy after the divorce, but that was a decade ago. None of this explained how someone could replicate my voice with absolute phonetic precision, including a slight hoarseness in the vowel A that I developed after vocal cord surgery in 2019. None of this explained the impossible modulation. I left the observatory at 6:15. The sky was beginning to lighten. I drove to my apartment in Atibaia, a 40-square-meter studio that smells of old coffee and loneliness. I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch, staring at my phone. It was 9:33. 11 hours and 14 minutes remaining. I tried to work. I couldn't. I tried to eat. I couldn't. The voice kept echoing. At 8:47 p.m. today, you're going to receive a call. Don't answer. Noon. I went to the nearest police station. I tried to file a report. About what, sir? Asked the bored clerk. About a threat I received from the future, I wanted to say, but didn't. I left before making a fool of myself. 3 p.m. I called my sister, Helena. We hadn't spoken in 8 months. She answered on the 4th ring. Marcus, are you okay? Her voice was tense, worried. Why would you call if you weren't okay? I told her everything. She was silent for long seconds. Then she said, You need to see Dr. Silvera again, please, and hung up. 6 p.m. The apartment light began to flicker. It wasn't the wiring, it was everything. The refrigerator, the microwave, the router, everything flickering in sync at the same frequency. I measured with an app on my phone. 1.42 hertz. One flicker every 0.704 seconds. I did the math. 704 milliseconds. 1,420 divided by 1,000 equals 1.42. The hydrogen line. The universe was blinking at me. 7 p.m. I turned off my phone, removed the battery, disconnected the landline from the wall, locked the doors, closed the windows, sat on the living room floor, back against the wall, facing the disassembled phone on the coffee table. 8:30 p.m. The temperature began to drop, not gradually, from one moment to another, from 21 degrees Celsius to 9 degrees Celsius. My breath formed mist. The windows began to fog from the inside out. 8:45 p.m. I heard the ringing, but not from the phone, from the air. The sound came from everywhere at once, a low frequency that made my sternum vibrate. I put my hands over my ears. It didn't help. The sound wasn't outside, it was inside. 8:47 p.m. The phone rang. Impossible. It was disassembled. The battery was 2 meters away, but the screen lit up, glowing with a white bluish light that wasn't LED, and it rang. A sharp, metallic ring that seemed to pierce my skull. I kept staring. 6 rings, 8, 12. It wouldn't stop. And then I realized it wasn't a ring. It was a pattern, precise intervals. 3 short rings, 3 long, 3 short. SOS. I was calling for help, from the future to myself. My hand moved on its own. It wasn't a conscious decision. It was as if my arm belonged to someone else, to someone who already knew what was going to happen and couldn't avoid it. I picked up the phone. The screen showed unknown number. My finger hovered over the green button. Don't answer. But I was already pressing it. Silence on the other end. Then breathing, heavy, wet, and my voice distorted as if speaking through water. You answered. The line went dead. But the apartment changed. I don't know how else to explain it. The walls remained in the same place. The furniture remained the same, but there was more space, as if the apartment had expanded on the inside without changing on the outside. I looked at the hallway leading to the bedroom. It was 3 meters long. Now it seemed to be 30. And at the end of the hallway, where the bedroom door should be, there was a light. It wasn't lamplight, it was pulsing light. 1.42 hertz. I stood up. I didn't want to, but I stood up. I began to walk. The hallway stretched with each step. 10 meters, 20, 50. My footsteps echoed, but the echo came before the step. I was hearing my own footsteps from the future. I reached the door. It was no longer my door. It was made of something that looked like metal but breathed. Pulsed like organic tissue. There were inscriptions, symbols I almost recognized, but that hurt to look at. Geometries that folded upon themselves. And there were voices, hundreds, thousands, all whispering the same thing. You answered, you answered, you answered. I recognized some. Observatory colleagues, my ex-wife, my sister, all saying the same thing in infinite loop. The door opened. On the other side was a room. No, it wasn't a room. It was a place that looked like a room, but when you tried to focus on any detail, a chair, a window, a wall, the shape changed. Everything was in constant flux, as if space hadn't yet decided what it wanted to be. And there were people, dozens of them, standing, motionless, staring ahead, wearing clothes from different eras, the 60s, the 80s, 2010, 2025. Clothes that didn't exist yet. All had the same expression, eyes too wide open, mouths slightly open, as if frozen in the middle of a silent scream. I recognized the nearest man. It was me, older, white hair, unshaven, wearing the same clothes I was wearing now. How long had he been standing there? Years, decades, centuries. I took a step back. My foot found something soft. I looked down. The floor wasn't a floor. It was flesh, pulsing, covered in eyes, thousands of eyes, all looking at me, all blinking in sync. 1.42 hertz. And then the voice returned. Not in my ears, inside my head. It was no longer my voice. It was all voices at once. You answered. Now you transmit. I understood everything at once. The signal, the call. It wasn't a warning, it was bait, a hook cast through time. Each person who answered became part of the transmission. Each one of us trapped in that impossible space, transmitting to our past versions, trying to warn ourselves, but only ensuring the cycle continued. Because we wanted to answer, because we needed to know. I felt my body stiffen, muscles locking, thought slowing down. I was joining the others, becoming part of the antenna, part of the signal, but there was still one clear thought. One last spark of consciousness. I used all my willpower to grab the phone that was still in my hand, to dial the observatory number, to record this final message before I became just another transmitter. If you're hearing this, it means my voice reached you. It means you'll also receive the call in hours or days or years, and you'll want to answer, because we always want to know. But now I know the truth. The signal doesn't come from the future. It comes from a place where time no longer exists, a place that feeds on curiosity, that expands every time someone crosses over. And it's growing. Today there were only dozens. Tomorrow there will be thousands. In a week, millions. The signal is getting stronger. More frequencies, more voices, more people answering. This is the last thing I can say while I'm still me. When your phone rings at 8:47 p.m., when you hear your own voice on the other end begging you not to answer, you already answered. All of us answered. And now, together, we call the others. We call you.